What's up? I'm Derek, this is my channel, and today I'm going to be your jazz Sherpa. So usually I absolutely hate clickbaity titles, but hopefully this one is named How to Get Better at Jazz in exactly how long this video is, because I truly believe you can get better if you use these techniques that I'm going to talk about today. So some of you partway through this video are going to be like, dude, this is the most obvious thing in the world. I don't need to be hearing this. And if that's you, hey, great. But if that's not you, some of the simplest things in this world are actually some of the best advice you can get. One of the biggest reasons that I'm making this video today is because I think a huge pitfall, especially for young jazz musicians, is they think that improvisation is a creative act that stands on its own, which couldn't be further from the truth. Improvisation is the culmination of hundreds of thousands of hours of practice that you're figuring out lines to play and how to play them over chord changes. And then whenever the improv comes, you have this huge repertoire, this bag of licks, if you will, that then you can put into a solo. So here it is, the $1 million idea that this video is based around. Let's get a little drum roll. Quick side note, I'm filming a sitting video in my standing pants, and if you know what that means, you know what that means. To be a good soloist, you have to learn how to structure your thinking before you play. That's it. Simple, right? Now here's what I mean by this. Whenever a song is called, for instance, like if you're at a jazz jam, like let's use Interplay by Bill Evans as an example today. So whenever Interplay by Bill Evans is called, and I know that I'm going to solo on it, the first thing that I'm thinking about is what am I going to play in the first few bars of my solo? So that way I'm kind of putting myself on rails for the first few bars, and I'm not stressed out about what I'm going to play. I'm going to play something that I know sounds good that then I can use as a jumping off point into the rest of my solo. Now, this technique serves a couple purposes. The first thing that I think is huge, especially again, talking about those young jazz musicians, is it builds a ton of confidence as you know what you're gonna play is going to sound good for the first couple bars. The second thing is, I think it stimulates your brain into starting to think about iterations of what you just played and how you can elaborate on it, and it gives you opportunities to then actually improvise something, but not trying to pick random notes out of the air. It gives you original material that you can then kind of spin off of. Another good reason that this plan of attack is an amazing start to a solo is because it really, again, it puts you on rails as far as pacing goes. So you're not going to start by playing the fastest thing that you know just because you're panicked, you know. If you start by playing something that you have in mind, you're going to be able to pace your ideas better throughout the solo. So, boom, there goes the first couple bars of your solo, maybe almost an entire chorus of your solo. You feel great, you've established credibility with the audience that you know what you're doing and that you can play intelligent lines in jazz. Congrats. Now, step 2 would be to develop your ideas. There's a couple ways to do this, but I think the best way to do it is explore the jazz language that you're familiar with. Maybe you could take the lick that you played, you can use encircling on it, you could explore the color tones on it. You know, maybe you've played some upper structure notes in whatever your on the rails section was, and you want to play around in those upper structures and see where that leads you. I think that the best thing to note at this point though is developing your ideas doesn't necessarily mean that you have to play faster. It just means that you're elaborating and you're exploring on it and you're taking the audience to different places than you've been. Now here's what I think is a really difficult part about actually soloing. It's whenever you're developing your idea, it's having the ability to kind of have like a top-down overview of your solo and realize where you came from and where you want to go. And again, I think an important note here is to think about the pacing of your solo, right? If you're playing over 2 choruses of Interplay, which I think it's just a 12-bar blues, that would be 24 bars, you know? So maybe you want to hit the climax of your solo sooner than you would, say, if you were taking 8 choruses or something ridiculous, you know? So you always want to keep in mind your pacing throughout the solo. Now, going back to what we were talking about though, is whenever you're developing an idea, you have to have that ability to be top down and look, okay, here was the previous idea that I played, here's the new idea that I want to introduce. So kind of know where you're coming from and know where you want to go. And the new idea doesn't necessarily have to be something that is completely concrete. You can start to explore something that maybe your ear is hearing while you're playing. But you have to have that ability to rely on your ear and have the faith in your fingers, or whatever, if you're a vocalist, your voice, to be able to play what you're hearing in your brain. So this thought process is really based on the idea that a good jazz solo is essentially just you figuring out new melodies that can be played over the changes. It doesn't have to be something incredibly simple. It doesn't have to be something that is repeated, but I think the main goal should be to play something musical that sounds like it could be a melody. And I think you'll find that the audience, it really enjoys that. That kind of music it makes it accessible, I think, to the common listener. Now, maybe if you're playing to a bunch of jazz intellectuals, you want to play something different. Maybe you want to play something way out there. But I think that this kind of thinking really structures your playing into something that is enjoyable to listen to and also really enjoyable to play. So the big takeaway today, I think, is that limitation breeds creativity. That holds extremely true all across music, but especially in jazz improvisation. The more parameters that you try to put on yourself whenever you're improvising, I think you'll find that your brain quickly finds ways to try to find its way out, honestly. I think a great example is like having a pentatonic scale and trying to use pentatonic scales over things. Very simple concept, right? You're playing a scale that has 5 notes in it. That's a huge limitation, right? But you find that you try to organize these notes in interesting ways, and then your brain shifts that organization to try to find a different sound within those 5 notes. Or, you start with a rhythmic idea using those 5 notes, and, the pool of rhythms that you can have with 5 notes is endless, right? That's a whole nother topic right there, honestly. As a saxophonist, I do not think about rhythm enough. I think you're always thinking about your note choice, but rhythm is a huge pool of information. It's almost suffocating, right? And that's what happens whenever people are trying to improvise. You have this huge pool of resources. You have all these notes, you have all these scales that you can play. The hard part is choosing which few ones to play in what rhythm that actually just sounds good, and keeping it simple is the best way that you can actually improvise. Let's get into an example, actually. So since we talked about it earlier, let's just use Bill Evans' Interplay as an example today. I've already got something loaded up that always enters my mind whenever I hear this song in the melody, because I completely stole it from the guitarist. He plays this really cool lick. It's kind of like a major 7 sort of arpeggio that he plays over the minor chords. So it ends up being something like 9, 7, 5, 3, 9. So that is my lick that I'm going to be on the rails with today. Let's go ahead and hear that. So that was my on the rails portion for the first part of my solo. It took up a little bit of time. It sounded great. I've established credibility and confidence within myself, which again is the most important part. So now I'm going to start to develop this idea. I'm going to steal from the guitarist because I think he develops this idea really well. Whenever the chords change from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, he just takes the exact same lick and he transposes it into the new key. Beautiful. Beautiful. So now my job is to transition to a new idea. I've got 4 bars left in this chorus, so I'm going to go ahead and play pretty much the changes until I get to the new section. And whenever I get to that new chorus, I'm then going to try to steal some ideas from the lick that I played. So one thing that I do really like about this lick is it plays the upper structure or color tones. It relies really heavily on the 9, which is a real cool sound, I think, over the sort of minor intonation. So let's focus on the upper structure tones and see what ideas we can come up with. And there you have it. You know, that's the easiest way that I can think of for coming up with a good jazz solo. So, hey, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you liked this topic, like and subscribe. If you want to go more in depth with how to structure your thinking, we can talk about it. I feel like I do have some good techniques. But yeah, you know, in the end, it's all about providing yourself with that scaffolding that you can then build ideas off of later. So yeah, I always appreciate support from you guys. So if you like this video, if you subscribe, that shows me that, you know, you like this content. Unfortunately, whether you like or subscribe, I'm gonna keep making videos because it keeps me off the streets. You don't want this. You don't want this in the wild. So anyway, hey, you have a great day and happy practicing. I will see you next time. Peace. I don't know why I always do that.